Hello and welcome to Honest Faith Conversations. As always, I am your co-host, Miguel Covarrubias.
And I'm Kathy Covarrubias. And today, let's talk about Hulu's, right?
No, it's Amazon Prime.
Oh, Amazon Prime's The Big Sick.
Even though it was out in theaters and it was it was a big deal for a while, and so it's been out. If you have not yet seen it, it's on Amazon Prime now because it was an Amazon Studio production.
Yep.
So it's on there now if you have not yet seen that. Of course, as always, spoiler alert.
What?
For what we're going to be talking about, since, it is pretty much the entire movie that we'll be discussing.
Yeah, we will be.
And time for our review and summary.
Yeah.
My brief summary of this, it is based upon the true story of Kumail Nanjiani's meeting and dating of his wife and her falling ill, and the struggles that happened there with them.
Yep. My summary is a stand-up comedian meets a girl, they fall in love, family drama kind of prevents them from actually solidifying anything. She gets sick, he realizes, oh, I do love her, I want to be with her forever, and then they are.
I thought it was really well done. I'm not a particularly big fan of Kumail Nanjiani's comedy. He always kind of rubbed me the wrong way because he is kind of a guest host on a lot of nerd podcasts and nerd things. Mm-hmm. And he just, I don't know, there was just something about him. But this kind of endeared him a little bit to me. I'll give him a second chance now because of it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it was a really good story, a really good way of going about it. I just kind of wonder how Emily, his wife, felt about an actress playing her and he was playing himself.
Yeah, that is kind of weird. But that's happened in the past. I mean,
yeah,
with actors playing themselves, telling their story, and having other people play their family members and friends. It is kind of strange.
Yeah. So, what's your review?
I liked it. I was kind of iffy on it at first because I didn't really hear too much about it. But I really did like it. I mean, some of the comedy bits weren't as, funny as I think they played them off to be, but that's just my own personal take on humor. I'm a very strange being when it comes to humor. It takes a lot to impress me.
Yeah. All right. Even though you believe that you're hilarious.
I am hilarious. I don't know what you're talking about. And what was I going to say? I was going to add something to the movie itself, but I totally forgot. Oh, I would classify this as a rom-com, but it's not a rom-com.
A romantic comedy, but not a romantic comedy.
Yeah, because it doesn't fall into the normal
It's more of a rom-dramedy.
Yeah,
romantic drama comedy. We're going to make up a new classification of
I'm sure there's one out
genre.
there already. Yeah.
The rom-dramedy.
The rom-dramedy.
Rom-dramedy? Rum-lama-ding-dong. All right, so with this one, since it is kind of based on a true story, this is something that, is, how we as human beings, we kind of romanticize our past. Mm-hmm. Is that we really leave out the smaller struggles, we leave out some of the smaller things that really take place. But I think that overall, in our sense of nostalgia, that we do kind of pull out the overall themes and concepts that were being taught to us at the time and the things that we were learning about. And I think that's what Kumail did here with the movie was, with Emily writing this movie, they're kind of basing off of each other's memory and nostalgia for these moments, is really pulling out that theme of love across boundaries. Mm-hmm. And I think that, for instance, the big one was the societal boundaries. And believe it or not, there is still a large base of people here in the United States who have this concept that people should not be in mixed marriages, that you
Yeah.
should be within your heritage group, that your nationality should stay with your nationality, and continue on your own national ethnic practices.
And it's and every culture is guilty of this. It isn't just the white population at large. It's all cultures are guilty of this.
Oh yeah, I know. Even my mom, this was something that she struggled with a lot, because she married a Mexican man. Her first husband, my father, was Mexican, and he did come to the country less than legally, but he did still fight in the Navy Reserves. He was in Desert Storm. He served this country, and he did it well for a long time. He got his green card, and he didn't get his citizenship until I was like 10. He had been here for a long time at that point, and had fought in Desert Storm before this.
Yep.
So, I mean, this was something that they struggled with quite a bit, because, well, for him, it was marrying a white woman, a woman who had been, our ancestors on my mom's side go all the way back to the Mayflower, and even beyond that, very early American settlers.
Yep.
And I mean, we can trace our lineage all the way back to England in the 14th century. So that's huge lineage. Whereas, Mexico, we don't have a whole lot of
like
lineage tracing and stuff like that. But for him, it's a lot of that stigma of marrying outside of your race, your heritage group. And so this is something that, for me personally, I think I'm glad that my parents stepped out of those bounds, and this is something that we're seeing with Kamal and Emily here in the movie was really kind of reaching beyond those societal boundaries there. That society saying no, a person of a certain ethnic heritage should not be with a white person, or a white person should not be with.
And I just think it's so strange to think that even just like 50 years ago, like people could not marry in a lot of part of the country. People could not marry outside of their heritage group or race legally. Like they had to stick with their own race.
Exactly.
And I mean, even us. I mean, we're together as one. We are more white than anything.
Yes.
And people still make comments to me "Oh, how does that work?" I'm like, it's fine. I don't know, what you're expecting me to say. I don't know. What do you think it looks like?
He makes Mexican food sometimes.
Yep, it's pretty delicious. I ask him to make me food sometimes. Yep.
Well, and the thing is that with being Pakistani, that, he is Muslim. And Pakistan has... this it is kind of a mixed religion in that country. There is a lot of Hindu, there is a lot of Muslim.
Well, they're
people
neighbors
there.
To India. So.
Well, they used to be India.
Yeah.
So it was kind of that thing where the Muslim religion did come in there. Islam was a very big part of the Pakistani people, and so it really. It's kind of both a mixed bag in that as well.
It has a lot of obviously the Muslim traditions, but then also has the what a lot of I guess the Western culture would associate with India instead.
Yeah. And I mean, even the head movements, he got some great actors who play his parents, because they did really do a lot of the kind of Indian, because I don't know if you've ever experienced some of the Indian culture in some movies and pop culture, but they've got that head bob thing, which is not a yes or no kind of thing, but it's more of moving a back and forth kind of thing, like a bobblehead.
What?
Yeah, it's a common Indian thing that you saw his mom doing throughout the thing. Is it doesn't mean yes or no. It kind of means a little maybe kind of thing, but I'm tracking with you. And it's explained in several other pieces of pop culture. But I mean, if you were to talk to a person from India, that they would tell you that that's pretty common. That's a pretty common gesture.
Huh.
Just like here in the United States, we do things that across the world would be seen as improper.
Yeah.
Like thumbs up or the OK symbol, which I don't think anybody really does the OK symbol anymore.
Yeah, that's kind of out of vogue.
Out of vogue? Yeah, we have other symbols now, which are much more inappropriate. So.
Yes, that is true.
But the great thing about podcasts is that nobody will ever see you flipping them the bird. So
that's also true. We could curse, which I'm guilty of. I will not this time, I promise. So far, so good.
But anyway, the point was that the religious boundaries here were Muslims dating outside or marrying outside of their faith, which is also another thing for Christians I would say evangelical Christians.
Yeah.
Because most Christians are like, it doesn't really matter all that much. Then there are people who do missionary dating, which is a whole different other ball game, which I don't want to really get into right now. Then you have the Jewish people who, they do date outside of their religion a bit, but it's more they can't get married to somebody who is outside of their religion.
Well, and I think it also depends on the
strictness of how much they adhere to their religious beliefs. But here in Islam, it's very, very much the same. The Abrahamic religions are very, very strict when it comes to dating and marrying and, kind of...
Courtship rules.
Yeah.
I rolled my eyes. I don't know if you guys could hear that, but it was a big eye roll with courtship rules.
Well, it plays into the societal and ethnic boundaries. That this is one of the big things that I think the theme of this movie was about was that a love that crosses the boundaries. That when you love somebody, you just love somebody. It doesn't matter who they are. It just happens. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's when you're least expecting it. And this is what I think they wrote brilliantly into the movie was that each of them were not really looking for somebody to date. They were looking just to kind of have fun, and they ended up falling in love in the process. Mm-hmm. And I think this is very much true to life, both in romantic love, but in also the agape love, the unconditional love that even Jesus spoke about, was that it's a love that crosses all boundaries, that it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter what you bring to the table, that you're going to love this person anyway, that it's not a conditional thing, that, doesn't matter if you're white or you're black or you're Pakistani or you're Mexican or you're green for that matter. Love is love. You're going to love somebody. It doesn't matter if they're the same gender or if you're transgender or if you're asexual or if you're gender fluid. That's the term that I was looking for. It doesn't matter because you're a human being and love transcends those boundaries. And that's one of the things that kind of blows me away, that even here now in 2017, that people still will put up these walls around love and really around their relationships because they think that they can't do these things, that they can't reach beyond these boundaries, that they will lose something like their family or their communities or what have you.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe that their love won't be enough to keep them together.
Yeah, and really, I think that reaching beyond the boundaries does take a lot from you. There is a risk to doing that, but ultimately, I think that it's much more rewarding to reach beyond the boundaries for that love.
I mean, you and I both have friends on all over the spectrum in terms of our basket is pretty diverse in terms of our friendship groups. And if we had just stuck with the original boundaries that you and I were given at birth, we, for example, would never have met if we just stuck with those boundaries.
Oh, I know. And I think that's one of the great things that, for my mom, I think it was great to see that this wasn't a problem for her, that I never really saw her struggle with this because she was like, I'm married to your dad and, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. That's not a big thing. And so, I really think that it does. The main conflict of the movie is completely different than the theme. I think the theme is love across boundaries, love that reaches across boundaries. But then the main conflict of the movie is how to bring that into your communities, how to bring that beyond those borders and bringing it back to a place where people can accept that and love you for that still. And I think that has a lot to do with communication and honesty.
Oh, absolutely. And that's another big thing, like besides the obvious, like trying to stay within the boundaries theme that was going on in The Big Sick. It was also like being open and honest about your feelings and communicating those feelings to the people who need to hear it. For example, well, if you saw the movie, that it could have a lot of the stuff could have been avoided if he had just been honest with his parents about not wanting to be in a arranged marriage. In fact, I kind of understand why he was doing it, because his
uncle was
exactly,
shunned. Yeah.
Exactly. And even though like they talked about his uncle, like, oh, I heard he had a kid. Like they still knew something was, what was going on in his life, but he still wasn't a part of their life. Yeah. Letting his mom like do what she thought that she needed to do in order to make sure that he got married, which, by the way, marriage is not the ultimate life goal. Let me just throw that out there. Even though I am married, you don't have to be married in order to be fulfilled. That's just my 2 cents.
It makes things easier legally.
It does make things easier legally and financially, too. But it's not a necessity, and you don't have to. Anyway, that's my own, rabbit trail.
Okay.
And it, like I said, it ultimately didn't help. Like, he thought he was helping his mom. Like, he thought that, if he just left her in the dark, that she was just going to be fine, bringing all these girls in to meet him. And that wasn't the case. Like, she was getting tired of it. And I think...
Well, I don't know how to describe his cigar box thing. Like, Why would you keep them?
I don't know. Maybe
it's like this gallery of, okay, well, one day I'm just going to have to pick.
I think so. I think he was just like, okay, I don't want to do it right now, but I know eventually I'm going to have to appease my mom, and this is going to happen. So I might as well just keep the doors open until, something comes. But then again, a lot of those women were probably already married or probably already in the process of being married.
Yeah, some of the earlier ones.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And it only made things worse with his mom, I think, at the end when he finally told them, I don't want to do it. I don't want to be in an arranged marriage. I don't want to do it. And I felt like this for a long time. And I think that really just hit his mom hard, because arranging marriages is hard. I mean, she had to talk to all of these families. She had to go out and negotiate, essentially, with the families on this. I don't agree with arranged marriages, but... I mean, it does take a lot of work. And I think that if he had just been open and honest with her when he was starting to have those doubts, it wouldn't have been as devastating, because she wouldn't have had to put so much time and effort into something that just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah. I really think that it's if you're a part of a community, you really need to be open and honest with how you're feeling, and especially if it's your loved ones. And I think that there is that superficial relationship that we get into, that we get complacent with how things are with each other.
Yep.
That we don't talk about things anymore beyond that. Is that once it gets to that point, you're just you expect somebody to, feel a certain way, and you don't really talk to them about it, which I think is, one, lazy, and two, a little dishonest.
Yeah. And I think that it really hurts your relationship to be, anyway, in a family, when you're not being open and honest. People can sense when you're not telling them the full truth. And I think that that's maybe what was going on with the parents, too. They're like, okay, you've met how many girls? You're not interested in any of them? What else? There has to be something else going on.
Yeah. They probably thought he was gay or something.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be, or something like that. And I think, like I said, because he waited so long, the outcome was a lot worse at the beginning than it could have been. However, before he told them, because of what happened with his uncle, he already knew what the worst outcome would be. the worst outcome would be that he would be kicked out of the family.
Exactly.
And so he was prepared for that. And so him, like, stepping out and saying, this is how I feel. I don't want to be in an arranged marriage. I don't even think I'm religious anymore. But you're not going to kick me out of this family.
And I think that in itself takes a lot of bravery. And I think that, I applauded him at that point, was taking back his life and saying, look, you know what? You're going to try to do this, but I'm not going to let you. Mm-hmm. And because you are important to me, I am not going to let you say that that I'm not important to you either.
Yep.
I know that I am. Mm-hmm. And so I really enjoyed that scene where he came back and he gave them the cards that he made for them to have conversation with him so that they can still shun him, but they can still converse with him.
Well, I think that he did that, too, to try to ease the tension just a little bit as well, just to, lighten the mood a little bit. But I think, not a lot of people are able to do that. Like, see, hey, this could be the worst case scenario. Like, how do I prepare for that? And a lot of people, when they have to tell secrets or when they have to tell feelings that they know are going to ultimately hurt somebody, they end up not telling them because of that fear of what could happen. But if you think about what the worst outcome could be and kind of plan for that scenario, like, okay, how am I going to handle it if this happens? And kind of like work yourself through it, kind of problem solving ahead of time, I think it's ultimately going to come out on top and be good for you.
Well, I think the reason why that was a powerful moment for me in the movie was because there so often times, especially in our society today, that, people will kick you out of their groups for whatever reason. And
not wearing pink on Wednesdays.
Yeah. And stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not going to happen. And, all this other stuff is that it's on you too, is that you can take charge of it and say, look, I'm not going to let you do this. I'm not going to let you kick me out of this group. You're important to me. And so if you're going to try to do this, I'm going to still be here.
Yeah.
And, that's, I think what he did was great, that they're still going to be his family.
Mm-hmm. Well, and he was and I know it's scary. Losing your family is scary, especially with a family that you were really close with. And it was very, very brave of him to actually come forward and tell them his truth. And ultimately, it actually strengthened his family, I think. You find out at the end that they still got married. They still had a Pakistani wedding. Like, they still had the wedding that his mom wanted him to have.
Yep.
And so I think that, it could just be a good thing for you to come out, tell your truth, and it could be a lot better than what you think it might end up being.
Well, and I think that, especially with the relationship between Kamal and Emily, that he could have told her, too.
Yeah,
he could have communicated to her, this is exactly what my family's like. This is what my family expects of me. And these are the boundaries that I'm facing right now, just because I love you. Mm-hmm. And
he could have brought it up, like, way earlier, like when they were talking about parents, like, hey, my parents are coming in. Why can't I meet your parents? And he could have just been like, listen, my family wants, like, they're trying to arrange marriages for me. And then that could have eased the whole her finding the pictures or whatnot, like she could have been like, oh, these are the girls they're trying to get you with, and kind of like, I don't know, bond them together, like, oh, well, I'm so much better than these girls anyway, because something like that.
Well, this one has a doctorate.
Yeah.
Why didn't you go for her? Because my mom set it up.
Yep.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And there is a sense of romance with those arranged marriages. And granted, we don't have an arranged marriage and we don't understand what it's like. But, there are those that do work and there are those that, can really succeed. And I think it's because both parties know what it took and that it's going to take work to really be in that relationship with each other. Yeah.
But then there's also the downside of the arranged marriages where it happens to young girls, like teens,
Oh,
even
yeah.
younger, to adult men. And that's the downside of arranged marriages. And that's why there's been a big push and pull away from it, which is completely understandable because that is completely wrong and disgusting.
And a quick aside here, if you don't believe that this is actually happening in the United States, you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
It is still happening. There is still child marriage in the United States. Believe it or not.
Yep. And legal, too. Mm-hmm. Essentially, the parents just have to say, yep, I allow this.
And one of the places that it's the worst is within Christian communities, evangelical Christian communities. And this is something that if you have some time and really don't care about how your day is going to be much more depressing after you're doing it, check out the Church2 hashtag on Twitter. There's stories of sexual abuse and even of this, of women saying, look, I was arranged to be married to this guy when I was 15 and he was 24. You know, these things that you don't believe that actually exist, but they do. Yep. They exist in this country. And, you know, those are communities where I really think that they've forgotten that this love that Jesus talks about is revolutionary. It's beyond borders. But sorry, that's a little rabbit trail there.
Yeah, but I think it's important to bring up because a lot of people don't realize that arranged marriages for children are happening in the United States. And it's often swept under the rug, as we've been seeing.
And most of those aren't successful.
No.
Most of those do end in divorce.
I wonder why.
Or worse, yeah.
Yeah, it's very, very troubling. And I think you should speak up against it.
If you had one of those situations where you did have an issue with your marriage, well, not only just arranged marriages, but in these Christian communities where you're forced to be married way younger than you should have been, seek help, find somebody, tell your story if you're brave enough to tell your story, and that's wonderful if you do feel brave enough. Using the hashtag Church2 on social media, that's a lot like the Me Too hashtag. You can also even reach out to somebody else and have them tell your story as well. If you don't want your name attached to it, if you're afraid of somebody finding you, you can go to the Post Church Christians on Facebook, which is my page, and you can message me. And we would be happy to share your story. And we would be happy to let people know that this is still happening, that unfortunately your story it happened and that it needs to be told. Your story is important too. You are important. Sorry, that's just, an aside that, we really believe in honesty and communication and that's something that needs to be communicated. That's something that people need to be honest about now more than ever, is to shine a light on the abuse of these things that's happening within the church.
And if it has to come down to changing your state laws around marriages, then so be it. Maybe we have to be a little bit more pushy in terms of our politicians and let them see that these ridiculous laws are still in the books. And there's still judges out there who approve these type of marriages, which is just sickening.
Well, I'm pretty sure there is one judge in particular that would have approved something like this.
Anyway, where do we go from here?
Well, and this is one of the big things that I wanted to talk about was the religious boundaries. And especially within the Christian community, is that this is still a thing, that purity culture, however toxic it may be, has now gotten to a point where it's extremely toxic. I mean, we're electing people who won't even admit to the abuse that they caused. Yeah. And it's very evident that they caused it.
Yep.
Even though there are many, many evangelical Christians who are out there saying, well, he's not proven guilty yet. There's a court system in place. But yet they're ready to jump on people who are across the aisle that are being accused of the same thing.
Yeah.
And so this is something that I want to remind people of, is that the love that Jesus talked about, God's love that Jesus talked about, there was no boundaries on it. There were no strings on that love. That there was nothing attached. that the whole idea of it, the whole reason why it was revolutionary, why it changed the world, why it started this weird Christianity religion, was because of that love, was that idea that this God didn't require anything from you to be loved, that God loved you just exactly the way you were, just exactly how you were, that it didn't matter if you were moral or whatever, that you were loved, and that reached beyond the boundaries that society placed for you, that Rome placed for you, that Israel placed for you, that this was whole different concept of the Jewish scriptures than what was taught. This is the reason why a lot of the Pharisees had issue with Jesus. This was the reason why a lot of the lawyers had issues with Jesus, because he was basically tearing down power systems. He was saying that, no, none of what they're saying is true. The law was made for man, not man for the law. That this is there for you to be good to one another. This is for you to be a human being and not to be restricted in some way. It's not for you to be a slave to whatever it is. And that's the incredible freedom that Jesus was teaching about. And I think that's gotten so very lost in our churches today. It's gotten so very that we've gone from Christianity to a weird offshoot of the Pharisaical law that the Israelites had at that same time that Jesus was living. This was the whole reason Jesus came, was to kind of show this. This is why he became popular.
Yep, and we're just going back. We're going back to the way, well, that Jesus tried to pull us away from.
Yeah. And even if you're in a different faith, even if you're a Muslim or an atheist or whatever, I'm pretty sure you see this too in your communities, that people are very stuck to this legalistic way of thinking, that you have to abide by these certain rules, or else, all manner of chaos will break out. I'm not suggesting anarchy. That's not what I'm saying, is that there shouldn't be any rules. No, I'm saying that we should learn how to live with each other, that we should learn how to be human beings towards each other, and that we shouldn't put these silly rules on restricting each other from loving each other, from being good to one another. But, that's just me. My little soapbox there.
It was very good.
Well, and I mean, that takes a lot of communication and honesty. And I think that, especially in marriage, that is something that where we should go as well, is that in good marriages, that it takes a lot. I mean, even I wouldn't say that perfect marriages. I don't think a perfect marriage exists.
No, and we are very far from perfect.
Yeah, is that we have our ups and our downs, but I find that when we're actually open and we're honest with each other, when we actually communicate, that's a good thing. That's exactly what brings us together most days, is when we actually put aside our pride and are able to be humble enough to come to the other person and say, hey, look, this is what I've been feeling. We need to talk about this. We need to flesh it out. We need to, figure out how to move forward with whatever it is that we're feeling.
Yep. And I think that, just from what I've learned from our marriage, it's always better to, when you notice the feelings first, bring it up. Don't be like, I've been feeling like this for years. That's not going to be helpful, because by that time, you've already escalated your feelings to way beyond trying to move forward. Now you're in the zone of being resentful. So it's always better to talk about your feelings and to get over what you need to get over sooner in the process rather than later.
Exactly. And it's about being honest. It's about revealing your true self. Because ultimately, that's in any relationship, is that you need to show who you are, or else that person is really not in a relationship with you. They're in a relationship with a phony mask that you put forward to them. And, and I think that ultimately it does us a disservice when we're not honest with somebody. It really hinders us to be who we are. And I mean, there's all kinds of manner of things that we're afraid to tell somebody else because we fear that it's going to make us seem like a horrible human being or whatever. And the surprising thing is, the more often that, you know, I'm honest and I'm open about some of the things that I'm feeling, the more I find that you're kind of okay with it. Like the fact that I'm not a huge fan of Johnny Depp.
No, well, neither am I, so it doesn't really, so that's fine. We agree on that. And, like, there's, like, certain things that, like, that you've brought up that annoy you. Like, sometimes, I know I'm not the only person that's guilty of this, but, like, opening up the microwave before it dings and not clearing out the timer.
Yes.
Yes. When I notice that I do it, I do clear it out. I know I'm not perfect yet, but it is something I'm working on. I know it's something really minor, but I know it's one of his pet peeves, so I'm working on it. I know it's there. When I notice it, I fix it. I'm trying.
Okay. I'm not a big fan of The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Neither am I. I don't know. I don't get it.
Okay. All right.
And that's another thing, too. Like, we bring up things that we're like, oh, no, how are they going to react? And they're like, yeah, I agree. And you're like, okay.
So we need to wrap it up now. I know that here at the end of the episode, you're probably thinking, hey, wait a second. Weren't you guys supposed to be talking about The Punisher this week?
Shh, Miguel, you're not supposed to remind them.
Well, we did post it on social media that we were not going to be doing The Punisher this weekend, primarily because we couldn't make it through a single episode.
We tried. We did.
Like it was almost that point where, like, at least Iron Fist kept you watching through the first episode.
So corny.
But The Punisher was kind of like, I don't know how I'm going to survive through another 6 episodes of John Barenthal being
moody,
broody. Yeah.
I just, maybe we'll give it another chance, like, later on, but as right now in our lives is just not what we need.
Exactly. It's a little too much for who we are at the moment. So just being honest with Punisher, and, you know, we're communicating our feelings.
Yes.
So
this is us being open and honest with you guys as an audience.
Exactly. But anyway, our feedback schedule. We may get to Broadchurch this weekend. We're not 100% sure because it does release on Friday, and so we have. Yeah, we
may have to binge watch hardcore.
We may have to binge watch hardcore. But, you know, David Tennant and Jodie Whittaker, they're 2 doctors in that TV series now. So,
Yep.
And I can't remember her name. The actress from Rev is in it as well.
Oh, yeah.
By the way, if you've ever been in ministry or if you've ever known someone in ministry, I highly recommend the TV show Rev.
Yes.
It is a fantastic TV show. It's all up on Hulu now. There's only 3 seasons. Brilliant show. Absolutely brilliant. And what's funny is that almost every single argument that the couple makes, that couple has, is pretty much our marriage. We've had that argument ourselves.
Yep. Yep. That's true.
So speaking of communication and honesty, it's in that. So check that out. We're going to be beginning our Christmas specials after that. If we don't get to Broadchurch this weekend, we will begin our Christmas specials this weekend. Please let us know what you would like us to do. The first one is probably going to be my Christmas favorite, is Christmas Vacation. It is my absolute of all-time favorite Christmas movie.
Can we do Muppet Christmas Carol?
Of course.
Yes.
And it's because I am pretty much Clark W. Griswold.
Yes.
And Kathy will tell you that I am Clark W. Griswold.
Yep.
I have high expectations for everything, and nothing ever lives up to my expectations.
Yep. And he was mighty disappointed when he found out that I'm allergic to evergreens, and so we have to have a fake tree.
Hey, that's fine. We don't have to spend money every year. We just have one fake tree that we use every year.
Yep.
So our Christmas specials will be running through the month of December and even into the beginning of January because, remember, Christmas begins on Christmas Day and runs for 12 days. So it goes all the way through January 6th. which is the Feast of the Epiphany. Just so you know, a little factoid there for you.
Yep, for those of you who did not grow up in a liturgical church.
Yep, and so we will probably, after that, do our top 10 list like we did last year, but we're going to do it differently this year. We're going to do our top 10 favorite episodes of this past year. And maybe even use some of our sound clips from those. I'll probably have to go through and
I was
find...
going to say, that's a lot of work. Good luck, Miguel.
We'll think of our favorite ones that we've done so far, and then we'll find clips from those to use.
Sound good.
So that will be coming in January after January 6th. So that will be our first episode of the new year.
Maybe we could.
Which, by the way, hey, this is amazing, you guys. We have almost been doing this for an entire year.
Yay!
So congratulate us because we have been podcasting for a year. That is awesome.
Yep. And if you guys want to do like your top 10 favorite episode of ours for this past year, send it over to us.
Yeah, send it by email or social media, which is a great transition. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm pretty good at those sometimes.
You can find us on social media. Again, you can find us at Post Church Christians, of course, but on the Real Honest Faith, which is facebook.com/Real Honest Faith, which is the Honest Faith page. We also have a group that you can join that is a closed group. You can find us by searching the Honest Faith Conversations, and you can join that group and you can give us feedback that way. That would be great on Facebook. So I heard that apparently for podcasts it's a thing to do is to have groups, so we have one.
Hooray.
There's only us two in it right now. So
so it's very up close and personal.
Exactly. So that's another good way to get us your top 10 list of your favorite episodes of ours from the past year. You can also find us on Twitter at Real Honest Faith. You can also email us, honestfaithconvos@gmail.com. You can go to our website and find those, thehonestfaith.com. There is a Contact Us page, which you can put that in there as well. You can also find my book on there. And you can also give us a call and we'll use that sound clip for our top 10 episodes of the year. That phone number is 720-372-3879. Again, that is 720-372-3879.
Should I make up a jingle for our song, or for our phone number, I mean?
Maybe. Like 187 Cars for Kids?
Yes.
18777 Cars for Kids, which will get stuck in your head forever. Anyway.
You're welcome.
With all that being said, we invite you to come and join the conversation.
Bye.